Hey, everybody. Welcome to another crossover podcast. This one is for you entrepreneur athletes and the Better at Beach Volleyball audience. Today, we have a very special guest. His name is Mike Sylvara, and he is one of the owners of Volleyball Beach Ozark in Missouri. And this is another person who is giving to his community, has started a nonprofit, believes in the true growth of two-on-two beach volleyball, along with getting those recreational athletes out there. And he put his money where his mouth is, and he started his own facility with some partners. So we are going to talk to him about that. If you're here for Better at Beach, well, we are here to talk about everything that has to do with beach volleyball and becoming a better participant, fan, coach, player. And if you're here for the Entrepreneur Athlete podcast, we're here to talk about the business side of it and what it takes to turn your sport, athletic, fitness passion into a business. So we're going to talk a lot about both areas. So I hope you enjoy this crossover podcast. All right, Mike Sylvara, what's going on, man? Thanks for the off-camera talk. I really appreciate that and getting some more insight into you, your company, who you are. And now it's time to introduce our audience to you. So first things first, do you have an elevator pitch of an intro? Who are you? What's your sport and fitness passion? And tell us a little bit about your history and then your current business.
Well, Mark and Better at Beach, thanks for having us on. I say us by Volleyball Beach Ozark and Play It Forward. I'm Michael Sylvara. I grew up in Kansas City, Missouri, lifelong sportist. I played almost every sport there was except for volleyball growing up. Imagine that. In the Midwest, actually, growing up in middle school and high school, I did not know one guy that played volleyball. I wrestled, played soccer, football, basketball, baseball, basically everything but volleyball. And then in high school, my gym coach and weightlifting coach, Eric Scherfenberg, he did Lifetime Sports and co-ed sports, and he started playing beach volleyball. And he was a national champion powerlifter and wrestler. I don't know if you've ever met him. He coaches P 413 out of Kansas City club. They have an elite beach volleyball club. But he was an elite powerlifter and wrestler. And then he broke his neck and then got into beach volleyball. And so what he did in gym class, we played sports, all of our stuff for like a week. And then for the last 3 months, we did volleyball. And we did indoor, then we did beach volleyball because he was like wanting to practice in the spring and in the fall to go try to make the tour during the summer. So we would play against him and he just had everybody playing. And I found out, man, this is a great sport. It's like, there's all different avenues of it. You can be athletic, you can have really good hands, you can be a positional player. And I really started to get interested in it, but then I was a high-level basketball player, so I was ranked in the top 100 in high school. I had some great success, all state. Went to college, got a scholarship, and decorated college player. And then at the end of my senior year in college, well, actually through my whole career, like most athletes that play football and basketball their whole life, start adding up injuries. And so by my senior year in college, I had a really successful season. I had an agent and I had a couple offers to go play overseas in Mexico and, some other places in the middle of nowhere in Europe. And I can't even pronounce the names anymore. But they, the difficulty was that I couldn't train how I wanted to play at the highest level because of my injuries. So I'd get all highly motivated, start training to get ready to go. And then my body I would have to rehab and do so much preparation just to train, not even talking about playing, but just to train that it really, sadly, I really started to lose the love of the game and competing just because it was such a burden with not only the pain management, but also I couldn't, I was lacking in the skills that I wanted to do and performing the way I wanted to do. And I would have these ups and then I would go down really quick because the injuries would start flaring up again. So I played some semi-pro ball and then did some other things. And then when I was about 30 years old, I went to Kansas City Volleyball Beach and played there in a Sixes League. and it was just a rec beer league, and everybody was having a great time. And I was like, man, this is great. And I played in the tournament. I ended up signing up for a league, and I was like, this is just awesome. Like, everybody's out here hanging out. There were some really good athletes. I mean, there was other, there was some pro football players. There was Division I volleyball players, soccer players. I mean, there was all different kinds of people playing, and they were all just hanging out, having a good time. And I was like, I basically fell in love with the atmosphere before I fell in love with the game, because, I was looking for, the camaraderie of sports, but also I wanted to have a good time and not be so serious, because I was doing it in my leisure time. After experiencing that, the first day I played in a tournament, I woke up the next day and I could walk. And normally when I played basketball, like a big game or something, I'd be like a crippled Kermit the Frog for like 3 days. I'd be pulling myself around, and it was not a positive thing. And and then I had to go to work, and that was, I was all banged up from basketball, but I played beach volleyball, and I was like, man, I could live to be 100 and keep playing. So I got really excited, and I just kept playing more and more and more. And I started a real estate business in Kansas City that was pretty successful. I was doing it by myself. Then I started a small team, and really quickly I started real estate, Mark, because I wanted to be Donald Trump. I wanted to make a bunch of money, write my own schedule, do that whole thing. And then I got into it, and it was great because I could earn some money, and the hourly pay for what I had to do was fantastic. So basically, like, how many hours a week I had to work to make a good income was fantastic, but it wasn't what I love to do, and I wasn't in sports. So the only time I got to be around sports is if I, went and played in a men's league or played beach volleyball, and my heart wasn't in it. And I just started planning, and this was in 2015. So, Mark, in 2015, I made a goal to own Volleyball Beach. And the first goal I made actually so in 2015, I made a goal to run tournaments at Volleyball Beach, and then it was to manage Volleyball Beach, and then it was to own Volleyball Beach. And all three of those were the one goal of owning my own Volleyball Beach. And the reason why I wanted to own Volleyball Beach is, for one, I could play in the sand until I was an old sand junkie. And then also, I like entertaining people, and I like being in a community, but I don't like it at my house. So, people come over and you have parties at your house, or you entertain people, then everybody leave and you have to clean it up. And so I thought, man, I could be around all my friends, because I didn't see my friends all the time. The older we get a family, stuff starts happening. It's like we see a friend once a month, sometimes once a year, even our family. But then I was like, I could own a beach and have all my family and friends around me all the time. Some people are probably like, I don't want that, but I do, because I'm I'm very family oriented, and I love my friends. And so I started planning that. That's 8 years ago now. And so moving forward, fast track that. So I started running tournaments at Volleyball Beach, Kansas City, and they went great. And the thing I did was, the tournaments that were being ran there were mostly charity and fundraisers. So it'd be like all these people would come out and play this big tournament, and then the champions would win the tournament, and they would be like, okay, we just won a champion. And there was some good volleyball. And the people running the tournament would be like gone before the championship was even over, because it was just a fundraiser. They just collected their money and booked out. And all these people were like, well, we just competed and won this. And I thought, man, like, I can do this better. So in college, I ran a Pro-Am league in Kansas City, and I had run camps. I did the NYSP, the National Sports Youth Camp. I ran that in Kansas City, Kansas. And so I thought, I can run tournaments and have them competitive and recreational. So the competitive players would come out, and what I ended up doing was doing quads for the competitive, like a quads open tournament. Mm-hmm. And with that, I did, so, say Mark, you and your friends, you could add a girl, or you could have 4 guys, or you could have co-ed. But the open, all the best volleyball players came out to play, because there wasn't any really big tournaments for competitive beach players around. And there'd be like one doubles tournament in Kansas City one doubles tournament in St. Louis the whole summer. And anything else was that you had to basically go to like California, Dallas, Chicago. You had to travel really far. And I didn't really know much about doubles, but quads is easy. I mean, you just run a tournament. Doubles gets a little bit more. You have to do a little bit more legwork with the tournament and get everything ready, and payouts and stuff. But anyway, so I started running those tournaments, and they were a huge success because now the competitive and the athletes found a place to play. And then afterwards, me and my sister just started giving them Madison. She was living down in Ozark and or the Springfield area, and she had a printing business. So I said, hey, can you make sweaters, and we'll give the hoodies to the champions, and then the competitive open will do a cash payout with the hoodies. And people just loved it. I mean, because they had never if they got something, it was like a rinky-dink shirt that was like they threw it in the back seat of their car and used it to wipe off their dash or something. But then they got these cool hoodies that they could represent. So the hoodies were worth a fortune to a lot of these players. And then we did a payout. It was like double your entry fee, which you might won $50 or something, but you got a hoodie and it was better than nothing. And that really took off. So I started doing that, and then I talked to the owner, and he was like, I want you to do more of these. And then I worked real estate during the day, and then I worked at the beach at night. And when I was working at the beach, I just said, I have to learn everything here, from being a janitor to managing the whole facility. And I just took it one by one. And the owner, me and him I would say, kind of became friends in a close relationship. He's older than me. And he just said, kind of gave me more access to do more stuff at the beach. And then he also saw that I was doing a really good job, and he respected it. And his business was growing from what I was doing. So he was getting really excited because his bank account was getting, increasing. You make people money, and they're going to like you. So that was a big positive thing. And he had asked me, I want to say in about 2017, if I would move to Springfield and if I ever thought about moving down here and open a beach with him and managing it. And that conversation got shot down really quick because I was like, Kansas City's my home. I had lived other places, but Kansas City was my home, Kansas City, Missouri. And I said, if I'm going to do this, I want to be the owner. I know what it's going to take, and I'm going to have to sell out my business. I'm going to have to burn my business and go full in if I'm going to do this. And I said, I'm going to have to be ownership, because being a manager, how much time and dedication this is going to take is not going to be worth it for any salary, because I'll just quit. I didn't love that much, but being an owner and then creating the business around what my heart desires was something that I was really interested in. And that was being a family, community oriented business and having the highest level volleyball. I wanted I imagined, and I still do, this is what we're doing in Volleyball Beach Ozark, is we want to have an AVP Pro tournament. And we just hooked up with the AVP, and now we're doing a Midwest Champions 4-star tournament the beginning of June. First time there's been a 4-star tournament in the Midwest outside of Florida or California or Atlantic City. So all that stuff, we've had Olympians. We had Mark Burik and Better at Beach. They're famous. We had them out here in Ozark. John Hayden, Olympian, longtime player. We've had a lot of great players come, and we're just going to keep doing that. And that's kind of the vision, is having the highest level of beach volleyball and also doing the recreational stuff, because we have sixes leagues, and we have people that are over 60 years old playing in our sixes leagues, drinking Michelob Ultra, Busch Light, hanging out with
the
friends.
beast.
And Mark, yeah, when we opened, there were some older people that just showed up on the doorstep before the doors were open, and they were just like, "What do you want us to do? We love this. We want to meet some girls. We want to hang out with our friends. We just got a whole new rebirth. We got resurrected from the dead," and they really did. So when we opened, it was a great thing, and I foresaw this happening. People started losing weight and building relationships that they never would have built before. People got off their Netflix and off their couch, started coming out. And so that's kind of what we're doing. And we're just growing the business day by day, and trying to work with people like Better at Beach and everything great that you're doing, AVP, BVNE, all these people, the USA we just want to build the sport at the highest level possible, give juniors the opportunity to get scholarships and play professionally if they want to, because that's not a thing in the Midwest. Mark, it's like if you don't play basketball, football, or baseball and a little bit of soccer in the Midwest, like you're an alien. But we're trying to change that, and we are. My nephew's the number one junior in the country. We got some other elite players, and it's all looking good and moving forward.
Man, there's so much to unwrap there. And that's that's the best elevator speech we could. Jake, we could wrap that up. That's a podcast in itself. And it's inspirational is what it is, because there's a lot of things that I picked out from that that I want to open up a little bit more. And I just want to start first of all by saying congratulations to sack up and say, I want the responsibility. I want the weight to fall on me, and I want to steer it how I want to do it. So I know what it's going to take. But when you transition from saying, yeah, I'm going to be a manager, to say, no, I'm going to own it because I'm going to steer the direction, I think a lot of the people who are listening are exactly in that mindset where they say, I'm just kind of tired of taking orders or things not going exactly and quickly in the direction that I want it to go. And so I just want to applaud you before we even start anything by turning down a job that you knew would be safe, comfortable, and successful, and saying, I'm going to take it all on me and really build it the way I want to build it. That's takes some nuts, and I think it's really important. What I want to first attack in the conversation is when you were an athlete and you were suffering those injuries, and I think a lot of people know and feel that story. I mean, personally, I know it as well. Like right now, now that I'm retired, all I'm doing is lifting. I'm doing some athletics, but all I'm doing is lifting. So I am getting so consistently stronger every week. Like all these numbers go up, and there's no tweaks. There's no little pulls. There's no sore knees or sore back where I have to pull back from the lifting. So it feels good, honestly, which sounds weird to most people, but it feels good to me because I can lift better and feel healthier and stronger than I did while I was playing, because you're doing that balance of, yeah, I need maximal skill training and I need maximal strength and plyometric and speed training. And so there's no tweaks, and it's just maximum recovery for me right now. The only thing that I'm getting is tighter hip flexors from sitting down at a computer more, but that's easy enough. For you as an athlete, when you were going through those injuries, for all the sports and exercise science junkies out there, do you think that right now you have any of the mindset or knowledge? How old are you?
37.
37. Okay, so we're 15 years beyond college, right? Beyond the opportunity to play pro. Do you think that you have any more tools that you didn't have as an athlete that you're like, man, if I had known this or done this type of training, I think I could have gone a couple more years? Or were the problems just perpetual and unstoppable?
A lot of both. So,
Okay.
My environment growing up, I grew up with 3 siblings, single mom, and we grew up in South Kansas City. So a lot of the people I hung around in the neighborhood, I mean, it was like get home from school, go to the park, we're playing basketball, we're playing football every single day until the lights go out, and sometimes, into the AM. And the people I around were, unfortunately, some of them were criminals, very serious criminals. So, and also drug abusers and drug dealers. So I was around that every single day. And so from a very young age, I started partaking in some of that activity. I mean, like the drinking and smoking. And I really cut myself short from doing those things. So that carried on all the way through high school and college because I never had a really good role model. And that was a huge thing, is like I was searching for role models. And even as a boy, I was searching for role models and men because my dad wasn't around. I was searching for somebody to teach me how to act and build character and do the right things. And I was looking to men
I
around
have a
me.
question on that. Is that something that you think now you were looking for back then, or as a kid, was that your mindset? Were you like, man, were you saying to yourself with your own words, man, I wish I had somebody to look up to. Man, I wish I had somebody whose footsteps I can follow in. Or is this you looking back on it saying, yeah, back then I was probably, if I had a role model, I would have been there. Which was it? Were you feeling it in that moment and just kind of being a kid? Because I think about a lot of the things that I assess now later, that I'm like, I probably wasn't thinking that, but if I had it.
So in sports, Mark, I did have a role model. It was Michael Jordan. I mean, I had like, um, he was who I wanted to be like.
Mm.
I followed his competition, how he was a competitor, how he trained, and I did that. On the other side of it, I was looking for a man role model that could be like a father figure, essentially. And if I knew that consciously or subconsciously, that's what I was going to. And a lot of times being at the park or in the streets when you were just third grade through high school, there's always guys that are a little bit older than you, and you kind of look up to them. And that, if they're not, so here's the question. So the answer to the question, Mark, yes, I did have a role model in Michael Jordan, maybe, for athletics, but I was looking for a role model, something more as in like building character and what was the right way to act and the right things to do. And I made a lot of good decisions for athletic and training and all that as a young kid, because I mean, I started training when I was fourth and fifth grade, like weight training, plyometrics, speed and agility. So at a very young age, I started doing that, but I was also smoking cigars and weed and drinking. I started drinking when I was 11, and that carried through. And so some of my injuries happened from not taking care of myself nutritionally, not resting. Like I would stay out late, I would drink before games, I would smoke before games. I got shot. When I was 16, I I got invited to a top 100 Nike camp for basketball, and it was like what I had been working for all fall, and this was in the spring. So a Friday, I got the invitation from the one of my coaches and said, you made the top 100 Nike camp. The next day, I got shot, and I couldn't do anything for 6 months. So it's like, yeah, there's both of those things. So my whole life, I've basically been searching for that figure to build character, be my role model, have integrity. But as a kid, you associate with the people you're around,
Mm.
and unfortunately, if you don't have somebody either knocking the sense into you or guiding you or leading you, you go astray. And that's what I did. And so it's a lot of those injuries that I did have. Yes, they came from basically not recovering. So now, after a game, I go eat the right meals and I get the rest. There's nothing that replaces sleep and proper nutrition, hydration. So instead of doing that, I was eating pizza and tacos and drinking beer and smoking, and that leads to injuries. There's no mistake. But yeah, so on that side of it, and here's the one thing. I gave up what I wanted most at the time when I was younger for what I wanted most in my life. And now I do what I want most in life instead of what I want most at the time. And that's just that instant gratification, delay it, and go for the big thing. And kind of like you were saying, making those choices about, I want to be the man. I want to take the leadership role, and that's not for everybody, and everybody doesn't like that or want that, but I did from a very young age. So if that kind of answers your question.
In a roundabout way, because I want to know
Yeah.
if we're looking at kids today, and I know the statistics behind if you don't have a father figure or male role model versus if you don't have a mother or a female role model as a man. If you don't have a father figure or male role model in your life, maybe I don't know the statistics, but you're 5 to 10x more likely to go to prison When you have a single father, you stay at the same prison rate that you do as anybody else. So for young men, the most important thing is to have some male presence there, some leadership, and somebody who, yeah, maybe knock some sense into you. But is there a way for you now? Do you recognize it in other kids, and do you reach out to them? Is there a way for other people to kind of create programs or just recognize what's going on and step in the right way? Do you have any secrets for would-be counselors and role models?
Sure, and it's goals, being goal oriented. We're all goal oriented. We need something to strive for, and once we have a goal, automatically our mind starts working towards that in every way possible to bring that about. So you give kids goals on character, accomplishment, if it's academics or sports or just having character and having integrity, because that's the most important. If you don't have discipline, you don't have anything. If you don't have integrity, you're going to get led astray. Same thing with character. If you get, the higher you go up without character, eventually you're going to fall. You're going to make a wrong decision. So it's having those goals and putting those things in perspective, and it not just being about money and performance, because that will happen as an addition to having great character if you have the ability. But everybody has a gift in some way or another, and it may be mowing lawns to dunking a basketball or having the best jump serve in the world. And what I'm saying is, without that dedication and integrity and discipline, and those being things in your foresight, then that it's gonna be shortened. And that's what happened to my career and my life. It got on my athletic life, it got shortened because those weren't the main things that I was striving for. It was performance and basically competition, instead of, okay, well, there's other things that are more important than that are long lasting, because we can only play sports and we can only compete for so long. Even though I said I'll play beach volleyball for 100, I'm not playing on tour and I'm not making money from it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'm not making the Olympics. So that it just gets cut short without those things. So for people that are counseling or building a club, and that's why I wanted to build a club, because we started our boys club, Mark, when you were out here, and it was actually that month that you were out here. I think it was last March. When you were out here, and we started our boys club that month, and now it's expanded to girls, because girls came from other clubs and from indoor and things, and they said, you talk to everybody in a different way. You're talking about stuff that it doesn't have anything to do with volleyball. And
Yep.
it really does. It has everything to do with volleyball, but they hadn't heard it from a coach or somebody else or a director or something. So, talking about those things, kids are like, wait a minute, your message is completely different from what I've heard. And you're acting towards us. It's not just about results on the field or the court. It's more about, how are you treating other people in the community? How are you acting towards your parents? How are you acting towards your siblings? And that stuff will pay off much more dividends than being the best, because we've seen the highest level of champions fall short at some time in their career because they didn't have those things. So putting those in goals is what I could say is the number one thing, and having kids recognize them and talk to them constantly about them.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing?
The conversations that you have, that you said, where it's outside volleyball, outside performance, that nobody else talks about. Remember, we're talking off camera. I said one of the most rewarding years of my life, and it was 6 months, was with my team in Brooklyn, a bunch of U15 girls. And these were the girls that grew up in my neighborhood. My neighborhood was maybe similar to yours. Heavy Irish. Everyone kind of starts drinking early, and everybody goes to the exact same places every weekend. Like, I know where they're hanging out, and I was just fresh out of college, 2 years out of college, so they're right behind me. As 15 and 16-year-olds, I understand where I was hanging out 4 years ago, and it's the same place. And so I had this one practice because I had heard, one of the girls got home late. Her parent was upset, and just heard the other parents talking. So I spent a whole practice. We didn't play good volleyball because I had everybody hold a volleyball while trying to play 6-on-6 practices, doing all the drills that we normally did and going through it. And, they got frustrated. They got upset. A couple of times they had 3 touches and they sent the ball over to the net. And then after all of this time, I think it was maybe an hour and 25 minutes into practice, I was like, what are we doing here? Yeah. Does anybody understand, like, is it easy to play with that in your hand? No. Can you do it? Yeah. Is that at the same level that you were able to? No. And then I started talking. I go, this ball represents everything in your life from drinking, drugs, any outside activity. I go, except instead of a ball, just so you know, this could be a bomb. I go, if you do it, can you play? Can you compete? Yeah, you can get some bump set spikes over. Are you going to be as good as somebody with two hands? Somebody as good who's not putting that into their life? No way. No way you can compete with them consistently and regularly, right? And then if we, instead of a ball, we turn this into a bomb, I go, if I turn this into a bomb at your head and this is what's going to happen to you at parties, like, yes, you can drink. Yes, you can make those choices. Plenty of people do, and they have successful lives. But you have to understand that if you let this go, if you forget that you're holding it for just a second and it drops, it can hurt you. It can hurt the people around you. It can ruin your life. It can maim you. And you have to understand this, guys. And I didn't, at no point did I say, don't drink. You're not allowed to drink. You can't do this. You can't do whatever. But I made it clear to them the picture through a metaphor of saying, hey, you can do it. And I'm not going to be like the rest of the people that just say, no. I'm going to tell you that this is what can happen. This is what will happen if you don't pay attention and you don't treat it intelligently. And, then that week they were all like nodding and they're in there. And I think that was probably one of the practices where we really connected. And then for sure, after that practice, I had won the parents over, where we didn't even have to talk about volleyball, playing time, anything like that anymore, because they knew what I was bringing to the table. And it wasn't volleyball. They knew I was playing pro. They knew I'd played D1 in college. But the important part was that I was making them better people, because I really didn't and don't care if they go D1, but if they're not valuable people and if they can't treat other people better, I 100% failed that season or that year. And that's a lot of how we build better at beach. Now at our camps as well, we have all of these daily seminars where we teach people how to communicate with each other, how to develop better relationships, recognize how you're treating the person next to you, because that's something that you can translate directly between volleyball into your relationships. Like the way that you talk to your partner. Okay, how do you talk to your wife? Okay, how do you talk to your boyfriend, your girlfriend? Do you know where you're weak? Anytime somebody else makes a mistake, is the only thing you're doing pointing out a mistake? Or have you set a long-term goal that you could say, all right, now I don't need to talk about all this other nonsense because we're going towards that goal, and I know that we recognize that as a team. So I like where you're coming from, and I think more coaches and leaders and employers need to understand that just because somebody has a job doesn't mean that the ultimate performance is profit margin. Somebody needs to take care of that so you can exist, so that people have jobs, so that they actually have the ability to support their family. But then you have to create an environment where you're talking about higher level things in terms of being a person.
Well, I don't know about you, Mark. So when I was making more money, when I was earning more money in real estate, I was not as happy as when I was making less money playing more sports, working out more, doing the things that I love, going fishing. I love gardening and growing things. So it's like, uh, and I'm not saying that you can't do both. I just didn't know how. And what I was doing, which I thought was going to be earn more money, more happiness, was not the truth, because I was trading my focus for the things that I love the most. And that's a lot. I think we're a lot alike on all those terms, but I think a lot of people make that mistake, and I made it. So I'm not, putting anything down by doing it. You go after those things, and then you find out. And if you don't sell your soul, or before something, you lose everything because you decide that money is the most important thing. Um, it's not, and it doesn't make happiness. Money makes a lot of things right. Like, try going without money, right? you know, Not so easy. Money makes everything better, but it doesn't make happiness, and it didn't fulfill my life. Now I'm just trying to figure out ways to earn more of it. Also, and it's not to buy more things or to spend it on things that I don't need. It's to invest in things that I love, and that's where I've really kind of changed my view. Is like, okay, I want to invest all my money in the things I love instead of things. And I didn't know that, at a younger age, because again, I didn't have a mentor to tell me or somebody to say that. So getting a mentor is so important. And I'm not sure, we haven't really talked about who some of your mentors were, or, how you got to be and have the character and the business savvy that you've gotten. Is that something that you kind of naturally had in your youth, or did you study and learn? I mean, I know you're a lifelong learner.
Yeah, my family was somewhere between, I guess, blue collar and not white collar. Definitely not white collar. And anyway, my dad was an indoor telephone technician, so essentially he was an electrician in the army during Vietnam, and my mom was a nurse her entire life. There was never a conversation of buying real estate as an investment, starting your own company, aside from a 25-cent lemonade stand in front of my house. None of these things. But they did make it clear, if you want some money, you got to get a job,
So you had a lemonade stand?
Yeah.
I mean, did you really do that?
I did it for 2 weeks.
You had that entrepreneur attitude or mindset at what age?
I don't think I did. This was like a 2-week
Really?
thing. Yeah,
You
no.
say that, but looking now.
Because where the job, the actual, that was 2 weeks of one summer. The first job that I had was coaching. I was 13 when I started coaching, and I had advanced to the oldest level of the youth summer camps, the sports camps that run from 8 a.m. to noon. And somebody was like, "Hey, do you want to coach some of the younger kids, the younger hours?" I was like, "Absolutely. That'd be fun. I get to hang out with sports. I get in a leadership role that makes me feel cool because I was the youngest of all of my brothers. And I was always like, man, I have them all to look up to and them to show me the way. I want a little brother. I want somebody that I can train, that I can, show the way." And maybe that's a lot of where that coaching instinct came from. But for me, it was all coaching. The entrepreneur stuff didn't start until I was out here in California. And I was like, man, I'm 30 years old and I still got $2,000 in my account. Like, what is going on? And I wasn't that bad in school. I did really well in college. I said, there just has to be a button that people are pressing, because there's no way that there's this many people that are that much smarter than me that have these houses on the coast and these places that are comfortable to live. And I'm sitting on 2,000 and there's no way that I can afford a home, right, for myself, that I'm still renting. And that weekend was the moment that I was like, all right, I gotta learn where these buttons are that make money so that I can continue playing volleyball. I'm not stressed. I don't have to bartend just to play on the pro tour. I needed to start finding buttons. And that's where I started learning heavily in real estate. There was some investing, but that didn't interest me at all. And then while I was coaching, people just started asking me to do more with Better at Beach and the old Volley Camp Hermosa. And so that's where that came from. It was never wanted to own my own business. I always wanted to teach, coach, be around sports. Psst, done. And then it came from, man, am I a loser at 30? Like, that I can't dictate the actions of my own life. And that's when the entrepreneur business stuff started going. And then it was all just podcasts upon podcasts and seeking out people who had done it at a higher level than me.
That's really similar to my story. I want to ask you, so did you go searching for those mentors or those people that basically had the income or the family or the business that you wanted? And did you find them, or did you find it in other avenues like podcast, books, literature, or just other type of, public speaking?
I found a lot of them through the podcasts. That was my number one way. Still probably is the number one way of learning. And then as soon as I knew that somebody was in one of those roles, I really dug in and fought for conversation with that person. I'd find a way to text them over somebody else or call them, let them know that I was like so interested and appreciative of what they've done and any of the conversations. And then they tell you on those podcasts that I was learning from, they tell you, hey, if you have a mentor, don't just suck the life out of them, figure out what you can do for them. And, you know, one of the guys who's, I heard on the Bigger Pockets podcast, a real estate podcast, he lived in Hermosa Beach. He mentioned that he was in Hermosa Beach, and then he gave his Instagram handle on the show. And he was from the East Coast, the Northeast, from Boston. And I was like, he's kind of like me. He moved to Hermosa Beach, except this guy's got 100 apartment units. Yeah. So I asked him if he wanted to grab a cup of coffee, let him know who I was. And he was like, absolutely. So I went, I bought him a cup of coffee with the $1,800 that I had left. and I bought him, I didn't know what he wanted, but I bought him a bottle of whiskey and a bottle of wine. And I said, the first thing that I want to do is just thank you for taking some time out to thank me, you know, to meet with me. And he gave me guidance for like a year straight. And he got me into his real estate investors club, and showed me where I was weak, showed me what was possible. And then from there, all of those other conversations just came from meeting through people, advertising that that's what I was interested in. And then those people they don't start seeking you out, but they start finding you somehow. When you say on your Instagram profile, you're a real estate investor, you're a business owner, people who otherwise wouldn't have a certain conversation with you will now mention that. And then you get into those conversations, and conversations is a learning place. And if you're not treating them like that, then you're probably not a high level learner who's constantly absorbing from your environment. So that was where I got it. And I'm still always seeking people who are way smarter, way better than me. And these podcasts are exactly that. I have a platform where I get to talk to people that I know are doing things at a really high level, and I just get to absorb as much knowledge as I can during these talks.
When you were in New York at coaching, and were you 23 or 25? You said like 2 years out of college.
Yeah, I think the Brooklyn one was I was 23. Yeah.
Why did you do that?
What do you mean, coach?
Yeah, like what was did you want to be like a division? I say that because when I got out of college and I made the decision I'm not playing anymore, I wanted to be a college coach. Like that's what I started going that avenue. Is that what your goal was, to be a coach?
Volleyball and sports and athletics, like those things, sports, volleyball, athletics, and psychology, those were the things that I was good at, that I had studied. I went to school for sports. I went to college for sports, and then I picked up an education. Some people do it the right way, where you aim at an education and then you go through sports. But I chose the majors that matched my passions. So they were exercise science and psychology. And I also did a little minor in nutrition. But that was what I loved. So anything that I had to do, like I bartended in, I think, like 8 or 9 different countries, actually, which is a side note, but the coaching isn't always available and you need some extra dimes. So that's what I did. You know, it was just, I know this, I enjoy it thoroughly. It's going to put me in a gym or in a weight room. And I enjoy coaching. I don't think there were too many goals of I have to be a Division I coach or I should. I just enjoyed the sport and enjoyed that leadership role.
So was Better at Beach, when you started it, was that a vision and a goal? Or did that just kind of fall into place?
That fell into place. Better at Beach. So I'll recap that. Better at Beach is more vision and goalie, but the origin of it was Volley Camp Hermosa. Volley Camp Hermosa was, I had coached a bunch of different volleyball vacations over in Europe, and I enjoyed it. And I said, why isn't anyone doing this in California? Because the 2 summers that I spent in California were awesome, but you expect that you go to California and then you get better at volleyball. Like, you don't think about all the micro steps in between. So I spent 2 weeks bumping balls next to volleyball courts and jump serving to nobody before somebody like invited me on a court, you know, and the 4th person wasn't there. So I was like, man, that was kind of a wasted 2 weeks. I didn't realize it then, but Finally, I got on a court. Same thing. I had to find a place to stay. Like, I had older brothers who had friends in the fire department in San Diego. I had somebody put me on their couch for an entire summer. Then the next summer, somebody else put me on their couch for a full summer. All those things that I was able to just somehow navigate, I realize can be super crazy intimidating to the point where they will stop you in your tracks for some people. And I wanted to create just an easy avenue. I said, I know how vacations work. Everybody wants to come to California to play volleyball. And it's harder for most people, and most people won't just buy that ticket. So I wanted to create something easy, like one button, you click it, and you've got your hotel, your place to stay, you've got your coach, you've got all the players you need to train against, and you are set for your first 7 days in California. And that's where it started. I just wanted to make it easier for somebody else to chase their dreams than it was for me. And then it just, everything, all the programs grew from that. That was 2015.
2015. So yeah. Now you're looking at that being full circle and having that all in one place in Chattanooga?
In Chattanooga, it's a slightly different dream for me. So in college, I've always wanted to also have a sports facility, coaching, a place where I could go, earn my money, and play every sport that I wanted to. So the Chattanooga Sports Park volleyball dream is to have enough land. Number one, and it's still on my board up there, for my family, I want a place for us to all be able to either vacation, live, or retire together in a big natural environment, like near a river, near a lake, on a mountain, something. And we all love sports. We all love competing against each other. So like, we've got to have some tennis courts. Maybe if we get older and our knees keep getting busted, like pickleball, beach volleyball for sure. And then now I can, if I have that on the same piece of land, I can also have that sports facility where I can create a community for people to have a place to go. I was the guy in college that wished there was a Friday night, like 11 p.m. and Saturday night, 11 p.m. sports league instead of just like the house parties. I was like, man, if somebody just had a place where I could go late at night, like people are forced to go and party instead of play sports. And I was like, I would play ball from 11 p.m. till 3 a.m. No doubt. It's just, would I meet as many girls there? Maybe not. But there's a place, there's a home for that. And I want to create a home for that with a facility as well, a place where people can go play sports whenever they want. They can lift, they can eat, and just hang out and be a gym rat the same way that I was.
Wonderful.
So, yeah. Few different goals all mixed into one, and I can see it as one vision. And then people will be able to come and vacation there and spend 7 days, 2 weeks. Like, we can also field pro athletes since the dream goal is to have some dorms and Airbnbs. It's like, all right, well, if you coach for us, then you get free room and board here at our sports park, and then you'll go and represent Better at Beach, around the world or around the country, and all of your training fees are covered, all of your housing is covered, etc. Just in like a dorm or more of a dormy environment.
So we kind of talked about this before. Is the bottom line with that vision the most important thing?
No, but it's necessary.
Yeah.
Because if you can't profit and you don't know how to profit, that dream gets shot dead quick. You run out of that money, you can't pay the bills. So if you look at an idea and you're like, okay, I got a dream, now you have to build it out step by step. You can't just chuck a bunch of money. I can't go to the people that I love, appreciate, and my mentors who have made 100x more money than I ever have, and say, hey, trust me with your money. What are you going to do? Well, I've got this great dream. Some people might throw you some stuff, but the smarter people who have done this before and can offer you better advice, those are the people that are like, okay, show me month to month, year to year, how it makes money, who you pay, what you're going to charge. Let me show me that you're a little bit prepared. And fortunately, I've had a pretty public reputation where a lot of people are like, I know you're not a quitter. I know you've done this on your own for long enough, and I know you're going to make it work. So I think when I make that ask to investors, I'll have an advantage that some other people might not. And I'm looking forward to the moment when I do that, and just got to keep hunting down some land that I think is perfect for it or good enough.
It's exciting.
It is exciting.
Is the rest of your family excited? Can they have you kind of sold the vision to them?
Piece by piece, just like anything, don't like mash it in their face. But the other day I sent all my brothers a little thing. I was like, hey guys, like, remember the couple of vacations that we had? Like my wedding, we all slept at the same house, giant mansion, like 15 rooms for a wedding. It was cheaper for a week in Chattanooga, which is where we got married. It was cheaper for a week having a 15-room mansion than it was for a night at a venue in California for our wedding.
Wow.
Insane. And I was like, that and another vacation that we took when we were kids. We were all in the same house. You all remember those as the best vacations we've ever had, right? And they're like, yeah. Don't you think the four of us could combine and get one thing that A, earns us money anyway, and B, we can all go and vacation whenever we want? And they're like, yeah. So now we've got a little text thing going. We're like sending a couple ideas, a couple of cities here and there. And I have shared with them, I go, if I find the right piece of land on a lake, on a river, and we can build some cabins, I've got it set for us guys. And so it's piece by piece. And of course they're all down because we all love each other. Like we're a family that wants to hang out with each other. And I'm forever grateful for that. So we'll see how it goes.
Oh, I'm sure it's going to go great, Mark.
All right, Mike, I've got a few more. I got a lot more questions for you, actually. I do want to know because I've seen some entrepreneurial patterns. You said you started the Pro-Am in college, and then you started real estate. Real estate in almost every environment is highly entrepreneurial. Even if you're an agent, you have to be entrepreneurial because you have to kind of set your own schedule and do all those things. What form of real estate were you in? Were you a wholesaler? Were you an agent? Residential sales? You're an agent?
I was an agent. Yeah.
Okay.
Residential, and then I did commercial land. Sold commercial land.
Nice.
So, yeah, I was just a street warrior, hit the streets and made things happen like that. And I liked it because I liked working by myself. That was the biggest thing. Mark, I've worked over 30 different jobs. I've added them up, and they've been from, being a lifeguard to being a janitor to managing a landscaping company, all these so many different avenues of work. And basically doing all those things, I found out what I didn't want to do. And a lot of the time, moving through that process, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I'd be working for people that would be stuck in a system. And almost immediately I'd be like, why are we doing this? And don't ask questions, just do your job. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like if we do it, and they're just like, shut up, stop talking, just get back to work. And I'm like, well, this is dumb. I'm quitting. Like, and then I would start thinking of other ways to do things. Yeah. And that's the world we live in. Right. And it's not that, it's just people don't continue to learn or they don't want to, change. And that's fine. I just didn't like who I was as much as, I wanted to be more and I wanted to do things better constantly. And so when I work these jobs and then I would see a job that I'd be like, this is something I would want to do. And like working for the government or coaching. And then I'd get around these people and I'd be like, they're not who I want to be. They're not I don't really, and you'd find out more about these people and it'd be a bunch of smoke and mirrors or things like that. And even extremely wealthy people. And then, so like, kind of like you, I didn't come from a lot of money or any money. And so I'd go to wealthy people and reach out to them and be like, oh, they got to be like super smart. They got to have like the best character. They got to have all their stuff in line. And I'd go try to get mentored by these people. In a short time, I'd be like, man, they're not who I want to be. I don't want to live my life like that. I don't want to earn my living like that. I don't want to treat people like that. I would rather not have something than have it and be like that. And basically it would be like, I'd rather have friends and they know who I am, or have business partners and they know who I am, than be a liar and a phony and be a hypocrite like that. I feel like my soul's allergic to that. Like I don't want people to, you know, I just don't want to be a phony. So, and so many people have smoke and mirrors and they have these images, especially the world we live in now where Facebook and Instagram and all these different avenues, you know, they make it look like everybody's so happy and so wealthy and so successful, and then that's just not true. And then even at the very top, you know, it's like, oh, these people have enormous characters and they have this, you know, great integrity, but it's not true. And then you meet them, and I've met a lot of these people from pro athletes to multimillionaire business people, and it's just like so basically, Mark, I had to find out uh, who was good. I was looking for a mentor and I couldn't find anybody that I could touch or talk to that I actually wanted to be like. And I was looking to mold myself into something greater, and I couldn't touch anybody or see or talk to anybody that I wanted to be like. And at that stage, I really started digging into books and old literature and things, you know, I thought, and this is where it came down. I thought, well, why am I trying to search out people that are around me when the greatest people in history are a book away? And then that's when I really started reading, and that really changed my life.
I love that. And people think that they read. They think that they like do a blog, do a website. It's it's way harder to publish a book than it is to publish a blog. You know, we'll say that to get a book that you can buy or acquire at a store takes so much more effort. So you have to be so much more committed to your craft to write a book than you do to write a blog post. And the fact that people think that they're learning through blog posts, yes, there is that opportunity, but I still think that books are just at a higher level. You know that somebody took the time to really care for this, that they appreciate it, that it went through, you know, other than like self-publishing on Amazon or whatever, that it went through a few stages of editorial, publisher. People thought, yeah, we can cover this and submit it to Barnes and Noble or whatever. And so there's a lot more checkpoints. You know, I remember reading this article called The Death of the Expert. And it was the idea that because there are no more editors, like editorial teams in newspapers, that anybody can write anything and it's immediately exposed to millions of people. And they could influence public thought without ever having run through multiple checkpoints of experts that say, this is BS, you didn't corroborate this, you did this. And now I don't want to get into it, but all of the way press is, news articles, news, anything, where you can just put something out, make sure you get the clicks because it's funding your situation. It's garbage. And so I think that books are still our top way to go. And even if you want to say like, well, I listen better. All right, great. Audiobook is still a book. If you're a listen learner, cool, then go for that. But books are still so high level compared to anything else. People just trying to match the algorithm on Google to get you to read their stuff.
Let me ask you this, Mark. So when you read these books that you read, do you feel like the author, when you actually read a book, you're tapping into their soul and their spirit and who they really are, and it's not just like a blog or an article where you're just getting the black and white. You're actually like getting their personality and who they really were from books, opposed from you know, blog posts or things like that. Do you feel that's true?
Not for me. For me, I don't feel deeply connected. I approach it as I'm learning from this, not connecting with the individual who did it. I more attach myself to their information. With the exception of, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but Hamilton, like the Hamilton Broadway show, I've watched that too many times, and it made me so proud of our history and our past to say that these people stood up at a time when they thought that there was injustice. They came together, they put in the work outside of just fighting. Like they fought with words, they fought with guns, they fought politically as lawyers. And those kind of the founding fathers that they show in the Hamilton, those are guys I was like, man, I actually felt like I was connecting with them because of the way that was done. And it also made me really, like I said, really proud of the USA and be like, man, I can't wait till we get back to stuff like that. with common enemies and bonding together and figuring out how not to trick people, but how to just get it done because it's right.
Well, okay. So when you were in Sweden and you were coaching,
Mm.
and you said that you could really kind of tap into those athletes, and you were more of an influence on them than American athletes. Do you think that has something to do with the literature or the programming or like the mass media, or what exactly was that with the Swedens, that they were so much more acceptable to what you had to tell them or what you had to coach them?
I don't think that those kids were more or less receptive to coaching. I just knew that when I was coaching in Europe and Sweden and in Norway, that I didn't have the legitimate threat of parents who were going to come
Mm.
talk to me, try to lock me for a 1 hour or 2 hour conversation and have them put pressure and why isn't this happening? I had, 3 conversations with parents in an entire season while I was in Sweden.
Wow.
And I know that people are having constant conversations with parents currently. And I think that the junior system right now, I think it's broken. The way that we put so much pressure on kids, the way that parents think that they're paying for a service instead of paying for an activity that their kid just loves to do. They're looking at their
Mm.
child as an investment or a protection from a financial downfall. Like if you look at your kid's athletic career as protecting you from $100,000 or a $400,000 payday, like come on, just make your own damn money. Stop putting it on your kid, and then you'll have way less pressure for this parent. Now, if you think that you can do it better than whatever coach is there, put it on the line and go do it. Don't sit there on the sidelines watching practice from the outside or watching 1 or 2 practices a week and then showing up for the tournaments without any of the other conversations and say, oh, you're doing this wrong. I can tell because I saw one match. Shut up. You have to be on the court in there every single day. And if you can't, then you don't have a say. I don't care how much money you're paying. You don't have a say in how much this coach is putting in because those coaches are not making good money. They're not making enough for you to have a say. You're not a partial owner of a multi-million-dollar company and you haven't invested millions. Like,
Yeah, you're an investor in the coaching process,
God,
right?
crazy. So that's what I
Okay,
didn't
so
have to deal with in Europe, and luckily because of some decisions I made, because I was blessed with a great parental and kid group in Brooklyn, I also didn't have to deal with that. But I know 100% that the number one reason volleyball coaches quit, and there are great coaches, great personalities, people that have the ability to change lives, they quit coaching and they stop influencing kids because of the parental involvement, not because of low pay, not because of travel hours, the stress because they're winning, losing, worried about their kids. It's because of the stress that comes from parents. And the more that you try to influence your coach, the more likely you are to end up with crappy, inexperienced leaders of your kids' teams. And that will be far worse for you in the long run.
well, Mark, I want you to forgive me because I've told people that Better at Beach provides one of the greatest services for clinics and camps that you could go to. So, I mean, I figured that because when you came here, I even kind of mentioned that to you. I said, hey, you have an elite service that you do. And do you now coaching and then camps and clinics are kind of different. When you're coaching an individual all the time, and like you were saying, the parents aren't there every minute and they don't see the kids' little body language, looks, and their gestures and their little talkbacks to their teammates or the coach. They don't see that constantly. So when they see you, like, maybe say something to them, or you're not as positive that they think you are, you don't give them the play time that they think, and they don't see those little things that are cancers and that can grow and destroy a club or a program or a partnership. do you feel like Better at Beach is a service, or is it an activity, like a sports activity?
We have
What
we
is
have
that?
steered ourselves more to be a service. When we started creating online courses in whose interview is this, Mike? What?
Hey, I'm trying to learn too, man.
uh, when we okay, so like the very first rendition of it, I legitimately wanted to make it so easy for people. I wrote this big article about imaginary bullies. That they're these imaginary bullies, the things that are stopping you from making a choice that you know and you want to. I said, all you got to do is just buy the ticket, like get rid of the imaginary bully. So one of the articles, the first articles I wrote for Volley Camp was, I've already knocked down all of the bullies. I've beat them up for you. You're one click away from having your bed, your coach, all the players next to you, and living the California dream. So come on out. Uh, then it started to be, I would invite some local players to be like the eighth player on the court. And I'd say, hey, come out, even it out. And then some people got me for private lessons and like, why do you keep running all of this stuff for everybody from outside? Like, can't you run a couple classes during the week for the people who live here? I was like, yeah, all right. Yeah, this wasn't designed for you because you're already out here. You already made the step to be in California or you live here. So then I started doing that. Better at Beach started because I was like, we're still not making money. I still don't have anything, still don't have freedom. I'm still cleaning all of the toilets like at night from our Airbnbs. The people that didn't stay in hotels, they would stay in our apartments, and I was in charge of cleaning. Then finally I hired an assistant who helped me clean. She didn't clean. Brandon, who came out for a few weeks during the summer, I would be like, yeah, no problem. You could stay at my house. Just as a favor, a little tit for tat. If you stay here for a few days, this is my best buddy. Like, could you just go and change these seats, do the laundry, change the pillowcases, wipe the counters in this other apartment? And he's like, what? Yeah, I guess. And so he did that for me.
What all good friends should do?
What's that?
I said what all good friends should do.
Oh yeah, you got to trick them. You got to lure them in. If you ever, me and my brothers, we have this thing we call a paint party. If you need to paint your house, you invite all of your buddies over for a couple of beers. And then when they show up, you hand them a beer in one hand and you hand them a paintbrush in the other. And they're like, what? But it's a quick way to get a lot of painting done. So then as we grew, then we started doing the online courses. And I was like, I need to make some kind of money. So all of these things that I'm saying constantly. Like, people are still asking me what a double is, what a lift is. I'm still telling people to get their hands together earlier or hold them together longer. It's like, all right, you know what? Maybe when people show up to me, I can start talking about some higher level stuff. So I'll just put out videos and I'll make these courses that people can take. They can watch on YouTube, or they can go more in depth on the courses and really work with us. Those went really well. And then some of the courses I didn't have fully prepped out. And instead of making them perfect, I said, I'm going to do a rough draft with an audience. So then I started coaching live online, where we had all these meetings. I took everybody's videos and I said, here's what you're doing wrong. Here's what you're doing right. Go fix it. Oh, okay. You're doing our workout program. Hey, you got to fix that squat. Your butt's winking at the end. You need some more mobility. And so we started doing all these live coaching, but remote. And those really had heavy influence on those people, heavy influence on our relationships, because we got to really know everybody week in and week out. And I said, all right, this is what has to exist. So now we have all of our courses available for the membership that you can get recorded. And we have the opportunity for you to get that upgraded coaching and that connection where it's like, yeah, it's going to take a lot more hours from us, but we're customize it. We're paying attention to you. We're showing you every exercise. And when you upload your videos and stuff, you do that. So then it creates community. And then the camps started as volleyball camps. And now, again, we're not a volleyball company. We're a community company. So you show up, you live a healthier life, you get friends from cities, states, countries that you never knew you had. So I'm giving people the life that I got to have, where I got to have best friends in Europe, in Australia, in South America. Like, I lived such a blessed life, and now I can go to a whole bunch of countries and stay with friends instead of staying at hotels and breaking the bank. And so now it's a friend reunion and it's a vacation. And that community, that bond, and now through the personal development seminars that we run at our camps, it's really, really coming full circle. So yeah, but this is your interview, Mike. So we got to get back to that. So you had the idea, from my math, about 7 years from having your idea of wanting your facility all the way to actually breaking ground. And now, so that everybody knows, you have 10 courts, right? You have a bar. Is there a locker room in there?
There's
no locker
yet.
room. Okay. But you got the hoses to wash off outside. And this is a giant volleyball bubble. When we went there, 10 courts with so much space in between them. And that's where off camera you were saying, well, we want to be the mix between high level volleyball and people who are just getting introduced to the sport and just want to come out and have fun and enjoy themselves. So that space between the court, I was like, man, you got room for 2 more courts here if you pinch them. And I remember you said, yeah, but then at the open or double A levels or at a legit tournament, people crash into each other. So it's not worth that to sacrifice the quality. And I really respected that. You went from 7 years of having the idea to finally doing it. What pushed you over the hump, or what opportunity did you see that made you finally pull the trigger, get the land?
So I'll answer that. Let me add something onto the courts, and people that are, if anybody's watching, they're thinking about building a beach in their city or even at their park or their backyard or whatever. So with our courts, Mark, there's 10 courts. When I spec'd them out and designed the courts in the facility, I wanted everything to match competition levels from juniors, collegiate, AVP, and FIVB standards. So when you walk in there, from the sand to the clear space on the inlines to the spacing of the nets, everything in there is spec'd to match all those competitions. So, and that was a big thing. So like last weekend, we had 5 colleges play at our facility. The weekend before that, we had 7 colleges. Now we're looking at doing a national 4-star tournament with AVP for juniors.
And you're 14 months in. Like, congratulations. That's sick. 14 months in, and you're running NCAA tournaments for colleges and national events. That alone fires me up and should fire everybody else up who's listening.
Well, so now to go on to your question, in 2019, my brother and sister, Andrew and Madison, they came to Kansas City, and I was running a quads tournament, and they came up to play. It was a quads and a sixes tournament at Kansas City Volleyball Beach, and they came up and played, and I had been working on the business, running these tournaments, managing the beach, learning as much as I can, trying to find out how this was going to be possible. And I had talked to some other investors because, Mark, I just didn't have the funds to drop $1 million to whatever, to make this happen. I had a little, basically nothing to throw at it, just basically to support myself to get this thing moving. And so my brother and sister came up for a tournament, and we played the tournament, and it's 2:00 in the morning, and we're at Buffalo Wild Wings, and we're drinking some cocktails and whiskey and eating some wings after the tournament. The tournament got over at like 1:00. The only place that was open was Buffalo Wild Wings. And we went there, and my brother and sister said, so this is 3 years after I made the goal. I mean, I wrote the goal down. I had it written on my weight belt. I had it written on my wall. I had it written on the floor, all the whole nine. Everywhere I went in my house, I was like, because I wanted to get out of real estate, like not real estate as we're talking about it now, but real estate, you're an agent and you have to pursue and get referrals and make your income instead of it being residual or an investment or things like Airbnb. That's not what I was so much doing. I was working. So I was looking to get out of that, and my brother and sister came up, and we're sitting there, and they both turned, and they're like, hey, would you move down and start this with us? And I was like, what do you mean? And they were like, let's open up Volleyball Beach down here at our place. And I said, Not unfortunately, I was going through a divorce at the time, so it was just me. And uh, right there on the spot, I said, "Heck yeah, let's roll." And they were like, "Bet." So it started then, and then for a year, I drove down to the Springfield area looking at real estate because being in real estate, I knew that that first purchase was the most important. If you're going to get, and what I was looking for was a piece of land, a lot that was basically 30% below market value, and buying that land on the hedge pushed us into not having a huge down payment. But actually, what we did is we ended up purchasing the land a year ahead of time, and that being the down payment for the business. But the land, that was 3 years ago. Market has gone up 10% over the last 3 years in our area, and then 25% for commercial land. So that land doubled in that
Whoa.
time, and we used that as the down payment. Now, also in that time, I went to Missouri State and the other colleges in the areas and met with their athletic director, and I told them what we were doing. Now, granted, they they all said, "Yeah, we're gonna like this is great. We'll start a beach volley. We're gonna." And Missouri State actually had a beach volleyball
Mm-hmm.
team, and actually one of their head coach was from Southern California, Long Beach. It was Terry Del Conte. So she played on the AVP for a little bit, and she's now coaching at UAB. So I met with her and the athletic director, and they were like, "Game on!" Like he was like, "We can't afford to build a $5-7 million facility at Missouri State, but our team has these little two courts and they're growing and the sport's growing every year. More and more people are getting interested." And he was like, "Game on, you build it and we'll come." So, granted, so I moved down here at the very beginning of 2020. I say moved from Kansas City to Ozark, Missouri. And we had our loan secured and we were going to break ground 2020 in March. And I was coaching at Missouri State with Terry, and I was coaching the beach team while we were about to build the facility. And then March 18th, we had practice, and we were getting ready to go to Long Beach for a week-long tournament with Missouri State's beach team to play Long Beach, Cal Fulton. There was, so we were going out to California that day. That was a Thursday, and we were having practice. We were going to drive to St. Louis, catch a plane with the baseball team, and fly to Southern California. We're finishing up practice. Terry already went to California because she's from there. So she left the day before because she was going to spend a day with her dad.
Nice.
And she calls me at practice and is like, "It's over." And I'm like, "What's over?" And she was like, "Everything's over. The season's done. Everybody's going home. It's done." And I'm like,
What?
"What are you talking about?" And she's like, "They just closed everything down. The school's closing right now." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? We're getting ready. The vans are parked outside." And she was like, "COVID just closed everything down. The season is over right now. Everybody is going home."
Dang.
So that hit. We didn't leave. All the girls are staying. We had a girl from China. We had a girl from like the Dominican. And and I was like, "Well, what about them?" And they were like, "Well, they can't leave. They can't fly home." And she was like, "They just have to find a place to stay, I guess, on campus or something." And I'm like, and so I knew this, and I'm looking at the team, and they're all getting ready. We're doing our last reps and everything. And I'm like, "Oh man, this is serious." And then so that hit, and the bank dropped our loan.
Oh
They said
no.
they were like, "No this is a red flag
Oh
as
my
it is."
God.
They were like, "We're not doing a small business risk loan for another 8 months until we can see the end of this thing." Nobody would touch us at the drop of a pin. So I mean, there's no comparable markets for banks to go off of in our area. So it was just the business plan and me selling them the vision. So
And
immediately we
you
had,
couldn't show them other cities? Like, did they ask for other cities when you were with that bank? Did they say like, "All right,
yeah,
show us"? Okay.
yeah. The owner at Kansas City Volleyball Beach was also a partner of ours. He was going to be a 10% partner coming down, and he also dropped out, and he gave me all his P&Ls,
Nice.
me and the banker, so that they could see everything that was going on. But it was still there. that was 2.5 hours away. So they were like, this isn't in our region. There is no beach volleyball around here. Beach volleyball has been in Kansas City for over 35
Yeah.
years.
And two, you're like, exactly. Like, we're first to market. Like, don't you see this?
And they were excited before COVID, and then as soon as everything shut down, they were like, "Get away from us! We can't talk to you.
Dang.
If we're not building banks, this is what one banker told me. If we're not building banks, we're not building anything right now."
Oh my God.
And I was like, "Why are you building banks?" Well, there's a reason. That's a whole different podcast or story or conversation. But so, Mark, that happened. So we had to go back to the drawing board, but the vision never stopped. My brother and sister, Andrew and Madison, they were in it, and we had some serious growing pains. But the good news is, this is what saved us. Lord willing, it was a blessing that COVID happened for us, because my brother and sister, they own grocery stores.
Mike, can you
So
pause?
everything's shut.
Can you say the
Yeah.
last minute again? I think this is you said your brother and sister saved it once the bank closed because the internet ran out there.
So my brother and sister, Madison and Andrew, they saved it. And Andrew has been in the grocery store business for 50 years.
Whoa.
So he had multiple grocery stores. And guess what was essential back in COVID?
Collateral? Oh, grocery stores. Oh, he probably did really great.
Grocery Oh my God. Everything was gone. He said everything in the whole store, they sold every piece of inventory almost.
Wow.
And that's what saved us. That saved our beach. So it was a God, it was something that we could, ideally we just wouldn't have had COVID, and everything would have kept moving forward. We would have ended the season. We would have broke ground. We would have been open. But that delayed us for about 18 months.
Oh, man.
So then we ended up breaking ground the next year. We opened up the courts June 4th, 2021. And all we had, it was like, Mark, it was like Afghanistan out there. All we had were these beach courts. We had huge pounds, we had like these boulders and all this dirt piled up like 50 feet in the air. No,
you start
gravel.
running like sand snowboarding classes from the top.
Yeah. I mean, it literally looked like Afghanistan with 10 beach volleyball courts. But the city said that they would let us occupy the courts and play during the summer while we were finishing the bar and grill, and then we would put the dome up. So
Okay.
we ended up finishing the dome. We put the dome up in October 2021, and then we became fully operational January 1st, 2022. So right now we're about 14 months.
Let me unlock some of the questions there. You're looking for land and you find land. How did you talk to commercial agents? Did you go door to door and knock on businesses and say, "Hey, do you have any extra land?" What was your process for looking for land to build?
So on the MLS, the multiple listing system or service, whatever, every city almost has one. And you don't have to do this. You go on realtor.com or Zillow's or anything, and you can look up lots of land, commercial. Ours is a C2, so it's small industrial.
C2 so I started means doing that when I was there can't be, that means that you can't live on it, right? And industrial services, which means, I guess, places where you can store things and build things like factories.
It's small industrial. Yeah. Okay. So you can do a small business. You just can't have like an airport or, just like a shopping mall necessarily. Yeah. Like not a shopping mall, like a big mall, like a Dillard's or something.
Did you ever get into to the place where you saw a piece of land, but it was zoned incorrectly, so you stopped trying to purchase it before talking to anybody? Because when I talk to people in Tennessee, they're like, "Oh yeah, we'll just get it rezoned," and I'm like, "I've worked with governments before, and we'll just get it rezoned. That could be like a 2-year process through however many stoppages there are." And so when I look at the way certain things are zoned, I really try to zone in on the ones that are already zoned for what we need, like a gym, maybe a multifamily, and an industrial, like you're saying.
You're exactly right. Now there's one thing. So yes, I did do that. I saw residential land, agriculture land that I was like, this is a quarter of the price, and we could blow this place up, just take
Agricultural
off
land
and
is
run
so
in with it.
cheap.
Yes. So, but now here's the thing with that. Yes, it's not like you just walk into the office at City Hall and say, "Hey, fill this, rezone this." But now that is possible, and some cities and governments are more progressive. And with you, Mark, in your background, if you could, I mean, I know you kind of got one place you got your eyes set on, but that is like if they're progressive, because what you're going to do is bring millions of tax dollars to their city,
Yep.
and then that means their salary goes up. Firemen, police department, teachers, city council, they're when you bring more tax money into their city, so if they can see it, they will do it. If it's logical.
Sure.
If you just go out in the middle of a field and you're like, yeah, we're going to do this, they're going to be like, get away. Unless if the money's right, because you're making the money. And if they're progressive. Now, on the other side of that, some governments don't want people from California or Kansas City or across the street coming in their neighborhood and building new things because they have the city under control. And that's what a lot of people run into.
I've already talked to a couple of my friends that are like, there is a little sentiment against New Yorkers and Californians moving in. So I was like, well, what if I said this? What if I just when they say, where are you from? What if I say, well, I went to college in Virginia. I'm like, is that a little bit closer? They're like, yes, stick with that, and say that you played Division I sports at a college. That way, you just like steer the steer the conversation in a different way. I was like, okay, got it. So I have a new intro for myself.
That is a thing, Mark, that is definitely possible for a lot of people out there. But for me, I was looking at the MLS, looking at these lots of land when I was in Kansas City, and then I'd pick them out, and I'd pick out this many lots, and then I'd drive down 2.5 hours and look at them, because then I'd walk them, and I'd see sometimes, if it's uneven, if the land is sloping, you're looking at another $300,000 of excavation. And people don't add, they're not thinking of that. Like, you find a flat piece of ground, you still have, you got to grade it and everything like that. But it's not if it's hilly or rocky or thing. I mean, that costs more money, and people need to put that in to understanding when they're doing things like this. So, I drive down and I look at different lands, and then, Mark, I wrote a lot of contracts trying to get to that 30% below market value. And it just took time, because I knew that was, in most businesses, that could make you or break you, especially when you don't have like if you don't have $10 million or 100 or 5 million, just depending on how big the business is, to throw at it. When you have limited funds and you have to make.
Go ahead. Finish that up. Sorry.
When you have limited funds, I mean, buying the biggest purchase is your real estate most of the time. And that can, that down payment, and if you can do it with cash or whatever, that's the biggest buy for most things. Now, if you're building a mall or something, that's still, but that real estate in the future is what's going to be worth the most money, because if you can go all over the country and look at malls, the malls get torn down, then that real estate's still $20 million because it's in that location. So I wrote a lot. Go back to your question. What were you going to say?
When you're looking for the pricing, are you looking at price per acre? Because that there's no, there might be no like businesses. So you're looking for an empty lot, and you say, I want to get a 30% discount on it. Are you looking at the price per acre for any other C2, or are you just relying on the commercial agent and saying, hey, I need to get this at 30% below market value because I need a safe bet that I can sell and have an exit strategy? And for us, that's a big thing as well. And it's why I don't want to lease. I want to take on the extra risk, because I think that land gets valued over time. Now, fastest way to break ground, lease the land. Lease the land, find a big warehouse, dump some sand in there, and you're pretty much good to go. Yes, that's the fastest, but then you're capped at your growth. Decisions aren't always yours unless you're extremely careful and purposeful with your contracts. But the biggest value is usually the land, or at least you can separate it so that if you decide to not do business anymore, you have two things to sell. You can sell the land and you can sell your business, which a lot of times should be separate from the land if you're interested in this sort of stuff.
And that's what we did. We
Okay.
definitely, I agree with you 100%, Mark, and that's the avenue we took. Um, and even though I'm a real estate professional, like my brother Andrew, he's been in the commercial and the business for a long time. So, we worked together a lot on this, and we went back and forth on talking about it. And he understands it just like I did. So it was basically price per acre. And
Okay.
I didn't talk to the agents. I wrote a contract and then handed it to them or emailed it to them. And,
You've got
they
that
hit me
experience. So
back
you had
and
a great benefit of a history with it. So know what
yeah,
know what you were doing from your previous job, which is, it's nice to have that.
that helped out a lot. I didn't have to mess around with anybody. And yeah, I love real estate agents. They can be a little interesting sometimes. So, and they have their motives. So,
And they're like
I
anything else.
had,
They're so hit or miss. Like, people don't,
yeah,
this is the biggest part for me about being an adult. The most disappointing part about being an adult is realizing that nobody has their stuff together. Realizing that everybody threw out like a bunch of guessing games, found some mentors, did it the best way they knew how, and sort of figured it out. I thought when I was in my 30s, I would look at everybody around me and be like, yeah, you know exactly what you're doing. Everybody's just trying and attempting to build stuff and build their life, but they don't often know how. So there are great doctors and there are crappy doctors. There are great lawyers. We look at like lawyers in the TV and the movies and we're like, oh man, everybody's so eloquent and they can give a great monologue in front of a whole courtroom. But it's not true. There are crappy lawyers that just pass the test. Like, so that's been the biggest disappointment about being an adult in my life.
well, there's two sides to that too, Mark. So I agree with that 100%. And I recognize that, um, around when I was 30, just like you, or you probably got onto it earlier than I did. But I said, man, in every job and in every profession I did, there was only about 10% of the people that were actually professionals, even in professional sports. And everybody else was an amateur filling in the gap. And it was like a vacuum. But the truth of the matter is, I even see it now that there's only about 3% in every professional that are actually professionals. And that's sports to lawyers to real estate agents to parents. Then those are the people that continue to learn and have the desire to be better every day and sharpen their tools. And sharpen their tools could be from a jump serve to a negotiation process to all those things. And so I noticed that, and I was amazed too, because I'd get into things and I would see these it's like so-called successful people because their income or their numbers, but they're not professionals. They're busybodies, or they've sold out to do that kind of stuff. And I'm like, that's not a professional to me. And then I was around athletes that were, you know, they might have been the best athlete in their sport in the world, but they weren't professionals. Kind of like I was talking about when I was in my youth. I was an extraordinary athlete, world class, but I didn't take things. I worked hard. I did the training, but that's not a professional. A professional recovers, they rest, they search out how to get better at new things. And I did some of that stuff, but not like a professional. And those are the people that have longevity and that have create the best service and the best products across the board, in my opinion. And I think we agree on that, the way you were saying it. But I really see that, and it might. So the double edged sword is for guys like you and me, and anybody listening that's an entrepreneur and athlete. You can lead the field in whatever you want to do with learning and listening to things like this and going to say camps and clinics. You were saying once you like these people, you're still having to tell them how to handset and you put out all this information. But the professionals, the people that really want to be professionals, the information's out there. And you offer it for so many different avenues in beach volleyball and in entrepreneurship, relationships, all that stuff. So that in that sense of it, it's great for guys like us because we can be giants in a short amount of time. 3 years, you can be a giant in basically everything you want to do if you put the time in, and you got to put hard work in. Like
Yeah.
you got to work hard.
Yeah, you gotta be open to learning, open to seeking out people, and just absorbing information and getting nonstop reps. It's always come down to reps. I tell the story about the way I developed in my career. I came to late, comparatively late from what I thought volleyball players would start. I played half a season my junior year of high school, and then I started at the end of my freshman year of college, and that was my whole volleyball experience. But the only math that I did in my head was how many reps have these guys gotten in the last 4 years? How do I get there in 1 year? Like, can I do 4 times as much work as they did all that time, whether it was visually, mental reps, studying film, even if it was peppering for another 2 hours after practice? How can I maximize those reps? And it's the same thing when we talk about business. It's if you're an entrepreneur and you're expecting an 8-hour day or a 7-hour day, and then you put it down, I don't think you're a real entrepreneur. You're constantly trying to think, absorb, how do I get better? How do I improve? What moves can I make? It's not a job, it's a life if you're an entrepreneur.
Just like being a high level athlete, everything you do from your sleep to your eating to even your conversations are, building your trade up, sharpening your tools. I'm 100% with you on that, Mark.
Mike, can I ask you how much you needed to bring for that real estate purchase, and if you guys were able to do it yourself, or did you need a help in the down payment? Because that's somewhere where I struggle. I know that 100% I cannot afford a down payment for what I would need to buy this amount of land that I want. So what do I look for? How do I look? And if we could get into any nitty gritty of investors, because I've asked now to be an investor in another volleyball company and part ownership, and it would be another job for me. I'm pretty interested in it. It's right up my alley. And I know just from looking at their website and their email system, I'm like, oh my God, I would bring immediate value. But then the idea of the profit chain, like if I pay this much to get this much ownership, or if I give this many years to provide this much ownership, what do I get on the back end and how do I receive it? So how did you have enough to come up with a down payment? Did you have to struggle for that to get the land?
You know, Luckily, no, the struggle for the land, my brother and sister, they're the investors. So
Okay.
I I had the business plan, I had the vision. Well, we had a complementary vision. We made it both how we want it, their love and my love, and they were basically the same thing. So it wasn't that difficult. Kind of like you're talking with your family, like, hey, we love the same. We love, this isn't rocket science putting our loves together. But now money with that, they were the investors, and that's my sister works in the business. She does our social media. She does, our clothing. She does a great job with the bar and all that kind of stuff. I operate the business day to day. So a lot of people, if you ask anybody, they would say that they don't see the back end of it, the organizing, the college events. Every weekend we have an event going. We have leagues 6 days a week. We have practices 7 days a week. We have all this stuff going on, and I'm organizing that. And that's 16-hour job because I'm there. I'm at the beach at night, and then I'm doing stuff like this, creating, income. I say creating income is partnerships. Our income is created by giving other people opportunities. Now, if that's an opportunity to play a recreational sport, to get exercise, to hang out with your friends, to get a college scholarship, to win a college event, or to be a professional, or even be an Olympian, we're giving those opportunities, and that's where our revenue comes in. So if it's Beer Sixes Leagues, people sign up for Beer Sixes Leagues to hang out with their friends and socialize and have a good time. And it's better than watching Netflix, in my opinion. So creating those opportunities is mostly my job and doing that stuff. But Andrew, he's the main investor, so he just basically plays and invests into the thing. And he's had a family business for almost half a century. So he had to specifically answer your question, how we purchased the land. He had equity in one of his businesses, and the bank just gave him an equity loan, a lien on one of his businesses that had that the okay. He had a business that the real estate on the business was paid, and the bank took that equity from the real estate, not his operating business, to pay for the land.
Oh, wow.
And then he just added that lien into it. So he didn't have to come up with the cash, but I mean, he just took on another.
Yeah, that's still somewhere between 3 and 7% loan that he took a risk on another business, right? To give you money and say, all right, you need to make more than whatever that loan he got from the bank was at 3 to, and nowadays it can be like 10. And you had to perform better than that loan over time.
So that's how we did that. And then his businesses, they also own a resort, are successful enough to feed the business. And so anybody going into this, any businesses normally don't profit in the first 3 years. 3 to 5 years is kind of the standard. I'm not a guru savvy business person, far from it. I'm an athlete, weight junkie type guy. I try to stay away from business because that's when I start getting in trouble. I try to offer services as best as I possible can. And that's event services or customer service, and that's what I pride myself on, is that kind of stuff. But the business side of it is he's had a successful business where he had the ability to do that. And it's a lot better, in my opinion, to use equity for a down payment than to take out your cash, because your cash could go to another investment that won't take equity if you're that kind of investor.
So you take out that equity and you're like, all right, well, I got this 3% loan. Now I can throw this money anywhere that gets more than 3%, and I'm paying for the loan and I'm making money. And that's the power of leverage that I think a lot of real estate people talk about. And I've done some of that with my investment properties where, okay, yeah, it's cash flowing nice, but now my property value has doubled. And a lot of people will say, oh, great, now it's worth more. So when you sell it, and I go, no, not when I sell it. Let me get a loan on this. And so now I take out more money. I have more cash. And I say, all I have to do with this cash is beat the percentage that I earn or that I have to pay with the other one. So it's a very interesting way for people to leverage their businesses. And if you're in it for a long time, if you've got real estate almost always I guess historically you could say it always goes up. And so you're always going to have every few years an opportunity to pull out money depending on the loan rate you can get and say, where can I put this money that will do better than X% that I have the loan for? And that's how you just continue. And then you grow, and you grow, and you compound like that. It sounds like that's what your brother did with one part of one of his businesses in order to support the volleyball.
Yeah. And that's I'm not there yet where I have that much equity in anything or that kind of cash flow. But that's what he did. And, a lot of people do that are highly successful in investing or running a business. And I'm sure you'll fit. But to answer your question, there's a couple different avenues that you can go about it. So some people just get an inheritance, $400, $1 million, and they're like, put it down the loan. We have no payoff. I'm not going to use that money. I don't want to start another business, so I'll just buy real estate with it. And it's really just talking to the investors and getting the vision clear by everybody, and knowing that, yeah, we can put a stamp on what time we think we're going to make a profit, but no one can foresee COVID. I mean, maybe somebody can foresee COVID, but you can't foresee things like the market. You can say, okay, every 7 years the market's going down, it's going to go back up, rates are going to go down, they're going to go back up, we're going to have an opportunity to buy at a low cost, sell at a high rate. All that stuff is universe. I mean, that's gone on since the beginning of time, right? But making those initial investments, and I'm not sure where your position is with buying or other people's, but you got to get creative.
Yeah.
And that's what we did.
Okay.
The more creative you can, that's the bottom line. You got to be creative when you don't have a big trust fund.
And so you were what we call a sweat equity investor. So you said, yeah, it's my business, whatever percentage I get out of it, but I'm not bringing the money. I don't have the money, but I know somebody who has the money and believes in the vision. So they're offering that. They're going to get X percentage of the business, which means that even on their percent, they might be able to get a loan down in the future, or based on whatever contract you make, they can pull out or get a dividend, which means that if the company's profiting, they can pull out X amount that they want to per quarter. And then something that people have to think about is when you pull money out of a business, even though it might be your right to take it as a profit, you also might be strangling or choking the business because they now have this tiny amount in the bank account where they look at it and they say, shoot, we can't get to zero because we need to have money to make moves. And it's an advantage to have extra cash to make moves, because then you're like, oh, yeah, well, we've got 50,000 in the account, so we can afford another employee for a little while. And I think he's going to crush it in marketing. Or I think bringing this employee on is going to bring us 100 new people because he's involved in this circle. And that's what people have to realize, that yes, you can pull out those dividends if it's a part of the contract, if you're an investor, or you can just leave it in and kind of sit and watch your money grow and then pull it out when you want to and when it's right for the business. Because even though if you pull out those dividends, you're still part owner of the business and you still want it to succeed and keep growing and getting bigger, because that's what you invested in it to do. Does that sound right to you, the way I broke it down there?
Yeah, 100%, Mark. I have the sweat. I mean, I'm the sweat owner. It's like, and you came out and saw me. You saw me cooking, right? You saw me bartending. You saw me cleaning bathrooms. You saw me cleaning toilets. And the reason why I've done that, and this was all part of the plan, and we agreed to this, is, well, until the volume of our customers gets to the point where our profit can hire more, until we can get 50 more thousand where we can hire, I have to do that work. And that's just plain and bottom line. And now some people might be sitting out there, well, you're not that smart. Well, yeah, I'm not that smart. But the thing is, I'm creating the business like we talked about from the beginning and molding it how I want it. You give something to somebody else, you give a manager, even if it's a manager, they're going to start shaping your customers and the experience and how the environment, everything involved in your business. Those managers are an extension of you.
Mm-hmm.
And so a big part of my job is creating a vision for our employees to see that they need to follow these guidelines to create this atmosphere for the customers to have the experience that I want them to have. And it also be a family oriented business where we talked about earlier. It's not just a shindig bar where people are being we have all, every day you come to the beach, there's all different kids there. I don't want people getting smashed, cutting it up nonstop, which that's fine. There's a time and a place to have a party and do all that stuff, but not every day and not around kids, in my opinion, and families. I just don't want that. Now you give your business to somebody else, and anything's liable to happen because they're running your business. So that's why I've been so hands-on, and people need to understand that going into this. If you have a vision, you have to work that vision. You can't just say, hey, okay, I have the vision, here's my money, because that vision isn't going to be how you want it. It's whoever's running your business is going to start molding that vision towards you. And then you're going to come back one day and be like, wait a minute, what the heck just happened here? This isn't how I wanted it. What are you doing? And they're saying, well, I'm running the business. And it's like, oh man, well, I shouldn't have done that. I should have been tighter on the reins. And that's the situation I'm in.
So you're doing all of the majority of the work, and enough work that you have. You've said, I'm dedicating my own hours, my life, and I'm gonna make it successful. And then the part ownership that I have because of all the time that I'm putting in versus all of the money that the others have put in. Did you build into your agreements with the people who invest in your company, who gave you enough money to start this? Did you build into it a salary for yourself, or do you only take out what you need? For me, I've only ever taken out what I needed from the business, and there was never a salary that was, I take minimum salary that's allowable, so I don't have to say goodbye to tax money when I don't have to. I can hold on to it a little bit longer until the end of the year. Then I have more opportunities to invest in whatever fields that I see need investing. But I never built in a salary, and I think a lot of people recommend that, but it's not the only way to go. So which way did you guys go?
Both in the beginning. So when I quit real estate, when I was still in Kansas City, there was about 8 months where I said, okay, and so you said earlier you were talking about how we're getting these colleges, how we're having these, pro events on the horizon, how we're getting these 4-star tournaments and these national championships, is because when I was in Kansas City and this thing was still a vision, nobody could see anything but basically me and my brother and sister and the owner in Kansas City. I was working on building those incomes, those relationships, so we would have incomes. And at that point, I'll be completely honest with you, Mark, I had $30,000 saved up in my bank that I basically lived off of for 8 months, and moved down here, sold my house. And then when I moved down here and we weren't open, then we created a salary for me to have. And then once we started business, once the business started going and making more money, then I upped my salary a little bit. But I was still making more money in real estate. I took a pay cut for sure. But like I said, I'm around athletes. I get to be around my friends and family every day. That's priceless compared to what your income is. I mean, because if I'm working a job, I don't get to be around my family and friends and sports, not unless it's that. But even when I was like coaching in college, that's 100-hour work week during the season. You're traveling, then you're watching film, then you're training.
If you're one of the 3% who does it like a professional, you could easily make it a 20-hour work week. But if you're doing it the right way,
yeah. So that's basically how it panned out.
Okay, and then exit strategy. So talk to me about like exit strategy, or when. I'll preface that by saying, if you've got a business and you're passionate about it and you see a dream and you want to build it, but your money or your energy are you're putting your money and your energy into things that make you better money than your business, then I think you need to upgrade your business. Like, if you don't see that you're starting your business as the best investment of your time and energy, then you're not the one who should be in charge of that. So you shouldn't be leeching from your business, and you should be working at it as hard as you can to say, all right, I'm going to create the dream, and now I got to figure out how to make it profitable as well, so that we can continue to grow and explore any dreams that come up along the way. When you say, all right, now it's my time to retire. So let's say that your business now has $1 million in the account. You've got 33, your sister's got 33, brother's got 33. Now, when you sell it, essentially, that's when you get your nest egg, or I guess you can leverage or sell along the way your share of it back to the people, right? You can do it as a loan. So what ways, if one of you needed or wanted to exit, do you guys know how that would look?
Yeah, we talked about that before, and honestly, anybody who's listening, these things should everything possible that anybody could think of in doing a business with family and friends. And they say that's not, I always believe that it's better to make a friendship from business than start a business with friends or family. In my situation, it's not like that, because friends and family, they don't treat, they know you, so they, sometimes they'll walk over you, sometimes they won't respect you, sometimes when they're not having a good day, they'll be like, you do it, But if it's a business, somebody will suck it up and say, okay, I'll get it done. Then you build a friendship, then it's a lot more compatible, and then it lasts longer. So if you are starting with family and friends, everything should be disclosed as much as possible up front. And that's what we did, is we said, if we sell, all of us sell out, this is the price we're selling out at. If you sell out, or if I sell out, you and I have the first option to buy back the business.
Okay.
So like if we were partners, Mark, and you said, I want to sell, and I said, up front, I have I get the first option if I'm going to buy it back or
Hmm.
buy your shares or whatever that is. And that's what we did. But then we also said, our plan was to never sell. And then our kids and family, this be 30 years, and then their kids and their family are playing there. And, but we did
Sure.
the number that we picked to sell our business. I'll tell you, Mark, it was $10 million. We created our business for about $5 million. So we were like, yeah, if somebody comes along and says, hey, here's $10 million, we'll each have, a few million or a couple million. Great. That's changed now. Like, I don't think we would do that now because
Hmm.
one, real estate has gone up, and one, I mean, we live there. It's our labor of love. That's where we meet up at every day.
You could
Uh,
tell the way you guys
it's
run it that you love being there, that it is your home. The way that I looked at it, seeing the way that you guys functioned there was the way that we used to walk into our locker room in college. Was like, this is
yes,
this is our safe space, this is our home, we know this environment, and this is our home. That's the way we looked at like our locker room in college. And I felt that when I came into your facility, between you, your brother, your sister, and then some of the bartenders as well. I was like, you could tell that this isn't their work, that this is where they enjoy being, and it's separate from the rest of the world. I remember that feeling. That's funny.
and that's how we want everybody to walk in the doors, to feel like they're a part of it and it's their home just as much as ours. And I don't have, even though I want the community to police itself.
Mm.
I don't want to have to be the one saying, these are the rules. I want it to be a place where people, if you're being an asshole, people let you know, and they're like, you're not wanted here, because nobody likes that stuff, especially in sports, especially in recreations. Now, you get some of that in the highest level of competition when paychecks and livelihoods are on the line. That's a different story. But, for day in, day out, like, take it, go somewhere else. And I tell people, we have tournaments or we have events. I say, hey, look, if you're going to be a jerk and treat people down, I'll give you your money back and go home now. Like, because I don't want it and I don't need your money and nobody else wants it. And people say, well, the customer's always right and this and that. No, not necessarily, because that one
Guess what?
customer might run off.
You're not a customer anymore. You're fired as a
Yeah,
customer. We've fired a
yeah.
couple of customers. We have, and there's a time to do that. You can do that again if we go back to youth sports. Every now and then, a club needs to fire a parent, a family, a player, and businesses exactly the same. Every now and then, you need to say to your customer, member, whatever, here's your money back. We can't work with you anymore. Give them the valid reasons. Give them a few warning shots. Give them like, hey, you got to clean up. So if they're just like blindsided by the fact that you said you can't come here anymore, that's a little different. But along the way, like whether it's your employee, your customer, or a parent on your juniors team, they need to know that they're about to get fired. And then they need to know, like, when they've taken that last step that gets them fired, they need to know that they were the ones crossing the line into firedom.
And from my observations, Mark, you're exactly right. And those people know exactly who they are the whole way, and they know what they're doing. That's why they are who they are, because they're either manipulating people, or they're trying to get over on people, or they're just being jerks because maybe they're constipated. I don't know, but it is what it
Mentally
is, right?
constipated,
And those,
emotionally constipated.
yeah, definitely. Um, I agree with you 100%.
If we go back to the ownership perspective, and you've got, let's just say 33%, do you know, because I don't know the answer to this, and I'll ask my group, I've got a little mastermind group, can you get a loan, an individual loan, based on your percentage of
Some
of the company?
That's a unique situation, and it depends on the banker.
Okay.
So, I mean, if the banker is your friend and you can show them your equity or your income or your profits and what you own, then absolutely. I mean, that's no different from it just comes down to the bank. And that's like when we got our loan, we got dropped, and then somebody else said, no, we believe in you. And we met them and they met me, and we had several meetings with the president of the bank. and I met him personally several times, and he was just basically judging my character. Like, are you gonna? Is this? Are you gonna be here when times are tough? And then he said, yeah, let's. I absolutely believe in you. So it's like, Mark. Same thing with you. If you have other partners or whatever, you find a banker who's your friend, and bankers can be really good friends, obviously, because they can earn us a lot of money, or make us money, print it. That they'll take that on.
I think people forget that. People
I don't.
forget that. Just like this conversation that we're having, we're like, okay, there's the top 3% of operators in any, I'd argue like closer to 1% of operators in any industry. Some people, 99 people, will walk into that bank and say, hey, I'm going to start a business. And like, okay, what are you going to charge? How many employees do you have? They're not only looking for numbers, but they're looking for a conversation. Can you speak intelligently? Do you know your way around some of this? Do you have experience in that? No? Okay, you don't always need tons of experience to be successful, but what other experiences do you have? And if you can't talk to me and have a valid conversation with me about what your business is going to be, and like I don't feel like I can bond with you, that banker is probably making a judgment on, he can't even sell me on his dream thing. Like, I don't believe him when he tells me how glorious this is going to be. How is he going to get people to pay, to walk in the door? And people forget that it's not only about numbers. When you walk into a banker and you shake a hand and you say, hey man, how's it going? Well, I'm here to show you this, and I need some money, and I'll show you every little bit of it. They're not only judging their decision on those numbers, but on the conversation, their interaction with you, how much they like or enjoy you, how much they want to see you in their bank again. If they hate talking to you, they're going to have a relationship with you. So they're not gonna give you money to be like, yeah, come back to me like every couple of weeks when we're renegotiating loans or when you need extra money or something like that. Like, they want to hang out with people they like too, and who make them money, obviously. But, yeah.
And if you don't, they'll treat you like the plague.
Yep. And they should, to be honest.
Yep.
But I think a lot of people get really scared. You get scared to talk to lawyers. I'm probably projecting for myself. You get scared to talk to lawyers because you think that, like, as soon as you pick up the phone, they're going to start charging you and you're going to go broke. You get scared to talk to bankers because you know that this industry is designed to make money on you. And you're like, well, what am I going to do? Financial advisors are the same way. But the conversations, being able to put yourself out there and just say, I did this in Chattanooga. I walked into an investment banker and I say, hey, I've never been here before. I've never talked to a banker about getting a loan on a business. I've never had a commercial real estate, but here's the experience I do have. Here's my company. I'm wearing my own shirt. Here's our website. And I need help understanding what I need. He goes, great. Let's have a chat. So I walked in there knowing the things that I know, but not knowing what I needed to know for the conversation. And more people can do that. And that conversation helped me learn everything that I needed to know. I thought I needed to be prepared to go and talk to this banker. I didn't. I just walked into him and I said, this is what I'm trying to do. And he gave me all of the things that I need for the next meeting. And that saved me, I don't know, 3 days of researching on Google and saying a bunch of maybes. But he's got his own specific criteria as well. So that just walking in and saying, this is what I'm trying to do. Can we meet for a half hour? That's their job. So don't be afraid of those conversations is the moral of that story.
Mark, that's a great point. And if anybody listening really tones in on that, is I learned this in real estate, is be a professional at what you're professional at. Don't try to be a professional at other things, because one, you'll look like a fool to a real professional, and then you'll get yourself in all kinds of trouble. And a lot of people try to do that. They try to be like this broad, universal professional instead of just being so in real estate. I'm not an accountant. I'm not a tax lawyer. I don't do those things. I don't do mortgages and loans. I'm not a banker. So I can refer one to you, but I'm not one. So, whatever I say is not a professional. And I learned that then, and that really helped me through the banking process and through this whole process of owning this type of high risk business is I'm just being a professional at what I can do, and that's what I know best. The rest of the stuff, let the professionals be professionals, and then also, like you were saying, 3%, 1%, 0.5%. Find a real professional to work with, not just Joe Blow down the street.
Yeah, and that takes some trial and error as well. But man, Mike, this was this is Entrepreneur Athlete's best podcast yet, 100% bar none. The level of detail that we've gotten to get into, the discussion going from life to sports, coaching, athletics, injury recovery, quality of person, and legit business information that hopefully, I mean, if somebody's listening to this, like right now, I feel more confident going into the next step of whatever I'm doing just from being able to discuss these things with you. And I think if anybody listened to this and is still here, 100%, there are tools that they could take from here, or at least lessons that they could take from you that they can go forward with a little more confidence. And I think that's all we're really trying to do with this. You know, I treat this as my own personal school, and this was a rock star conversation. This is one of the 1%, 0.5% conversations that I've had about this topic. And so I really want to thank you for being so open to discussing it and taking 2.5 hours out of your day to do it, this is our longest episode. So thank you for sharing that with everybody who's listening and watching. And definitely thank you from me, because just talking to you has given me a lot more confidence. And talking to guys like you who discuss life and what you want to do for your community equally with just starting a business so that you can do that, it reminds everybody to stay on that track of you're not just in it for money. You're not just in it to do this. You're doing it because you love it and because you want to share your love and passion and whatever your dreams and goals are with somebody else. And for anybody who's an entrepreneur athlete, somebody who's turning their sport or fitness into a business, that's what you're doing. You already know that you love this. Now, hey, let's make it possible for a bunch of other people and make a living out of it too. So great talk, and really thank you. This has been cool.
Mark, thank you for having me, and Volleyball Beach and Play It Forward, our club. It really means a lot to us, and we believe in you. We've had you were one of the very first people we ever had out, and there was a reason for that, because in the Midwest, you are the main avenue for being a professional volleyball player or just learning skills that you can use in your 6 rec leagues, which is, just important for most people that are professionals in other fields, like being a lawyer or something like that. They still want to have fun and play beach volleyball. And you have the best service on what you provide. And everybody around here knows that. And you're a household name, and Better at Beaches too. So it was an honor being on here with you.
I appreciate that. No, exactly the same. Right back to you. What I want to do now is, if anybody's looking for you, if they want to come to your facility, if they want to see what's going on in your life, I want you to talk a little bit about what Play It Forward is before we get off here. It's your nonprofit arm, and I want you to talk about that, give your long elevator speech about it, and then where people can follow you and connect with you, and any opportunities that they can come to check out your heavenly facility, which is pretty sweet. So yeah, Instagrams first. What are all your Instagrams? Let's do that.
Well, there's at Play It Forward Beach Volleyball, and then there's VB_Ozark is Volleyball Beach Ozark, and then my personal Instagram is at Slim State, and then at Slim Nation, and then I also do a nonprofit farm, and that's at Challengers Farm. So those are the Instagrams, and then we're on Facebook under those two. And the main reason why I started Play It Forward is when I was younger and we had those conversations about kind of how we grew up, and we didn't have so many role models that we desired, and we couldn't just go to people and talk to them. It's not like we had professionals living next door, or we couldn't just go to the gym and there was a bunch of professionals shooting baskets or playing ball or anything like that. Um, I wanted kids that did not have financial backing to be able to come and still play. I mean, volleyball is more, all sports are getting expensive these days, but volleyball is a little bit more expensive, not unless you're using services like Better at Beach, which is affordable for just about everybody. I wanted to create a club where kids would be safe and they could come and learn from professionals and be in touching distance away from real professionals, not just people that claimed it or talked about it, but they also cared about their community, their family, and they wanted sincerely to watch kids develop not only in athletics, but also in character. And so we saw, I mean, I've wanted that my whole life. Growing up, I wanted a place. It's, I say it's Play It Forward. It's our club. It's kind of like my playing club too, because the kids are, uh, I say they're like my friends. I mean, we're all, we hang out together. We play in leagues together. So we have practices 4 days a week. And then after every practice, we play in adult leagues. So the kids, the ones that can actually play, the teenagers play in adult leagues. And a lot of times we play together. So I just wanted to create that where, I'm not the only professional, because we have other professionals. My wife's a doctor. We have other coaches that are technicians and nurses and other coaches. And like my brother's a coach, Andrew, and he's had a successful business for almost, the 30 years he's been involved in. So just being able to talk to those people, give kids the opportunity that I didn't have growing up. And it's constantly there, and they can come in at any time. Our club is mostly free for some of the kids. It's completely free for some of them. There's, like we do a session charge. So it's an 8-week session, but we even buy meals for some of the kids. The uniforms can be free, but yeah, I'm really passionate about it because it means a lot to me. And because that's just what I was missing in my life. And there's that gap there. And I wanted to provide that for people that didn't have a ability to get
That's
it.
awesome. Your passion comes through. It's inspiring. So if you guys are trying to, number one, donate, number two, get involved, see any versions of partnerships or anything like that, check out Play It Forward and get in touch with them. And if anything, figure out what they're doing so that maybe you can start it in your neighborhood, or you can start a branch of it, where you've already got some systems built in that Mike can share with you and be a part of that. So passion shining through. Again, Mike, thank you so much for this, for everybody listening. This was full of gems. If you've enjoyed it, go ahead and share it. A review always helps if you give it a little 5 stars. And if you are not subscribed to this channel or this podcast, then go ahead and click that subscribe button. And hopefully, I know that we won't all have 0.5% conversations on every episode like this one, but we do have some gems. So I want you to keep up with us. And from me, Mark Burik with Entrepreneur Athlete, athleticstartup.com, and Better at Beach Volleyball, just want to say thank you for listening, and we'll see you on the sand.